guys, Brian Stevens here over at Mortgage Talks. I have my good friend Carl White with Marketing Animals. All of you are aware of the notorious one over here. Listen, I want to jump right into this. Carl, I deal with a lot of loan officers. I speak with them a bunch, and over the years, I've always wondered why somebody is on their game today and they could be off their game tomorrow. You know, I've done a book club for a number of years, and I remember reading a book called Atomic Habits and talking about how difficult it is to change our habits. And even if you can change something, it's almost like holding your breath underwater. We can do it for a moment, but you eventually got to come up for air. I find this in myself too, so I understand the difficulties of it. What's your thought when it comes to loan officers and really kind of running with a great idea and really kind of having that stick-to-itness? What does it take for a loan officer to succeed, especially considering, how crazy things are getting, how the market is transforming right before our eyes? What's at the core of this? What do we need to do?
I was talking with somebody years ago. I'd love to give credit. I honestly don't remember who it was because this is years ago. Somebody said something to me, and it might have been one of the greats like Zig Ziglar. I really don't remember who it was. I asked him, I said, I just don't feel motivated today, right? And so I'm kind of going through the motions, but I'm not really getting anything accomplished. I'm just not motivated today. And he said, well, there's your problem right there. He said, if you're relying on motivation, you will fail 100% of the time. You might be motivated for a day, a week, a month. You might even be motivated unusually for 3 months. But on an ongoing basis, you can't rely on motivation. You have to rely on discipline. So motivation, I was reminded of this. I was listening to a great book that Stephen King wrote, and he wrote a book on how he writes. It was called Memoirs on Writing. My favorite book that he wrote. And in it, he talked about, he's often asked, how do you write so many pages? Because the dude has written, whether you like his writings or not, the dude, nobody can argue, he's written tens of thousands and thousands, and maybe over 100,000, certainly pages in his career of incredible writings. How do you pull that off? And he said, well, I only write when I feel like it. I just feel like it every Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So every Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., he sits in front of his, so he said in his book, his Underwood typewriter and hammered out some pages for that period of time, whether he felt like it or not, because it was the discipline of doing it. And so I think what we have to do, Brian, is we just have this discipline of this is my schedule. I can't wait till I feel like doing this. Is like this is my routine, and come hell or high water, I'm staying on my routine. And so for me, that's like almost everybody successful I know gets up early. I know you're a very early riser, yeah. Brian. In your time zone, you're probably an earlier riser even than I am. And I consider myself an extreme early riser. So I'll get up anywhere from about 4 or 5 o'clock, something like that. When you get up, do something positive, like read something, listen to a good podcast. If you haven't watched the shots yet, go watch that. Like go watch something that's going to get your blood going, and then go for a walk, a bike ride, go to the gym, jump rope. I don't care what you do, just get your heart beating. And then for me, it's like from like 9 to 9:30, I'm getting ready to start my day. I'm getting ready for the game. I'm on the field stretching, so to speak. And so maybe I'd I'm not a coffee drinker, but get your coffee, or in my case, get your tea. I have some little grapes that I chew on sometimes to soothe my throat a little bit. Maybe I'd get my list together of who I'm going to call. And then from 9:30 to 11:30, every Monday through Thursday, I'm prospecting. Whether I feel like it or not, I can't rely on my feelings. I'm just going to prospect. And so from 9:30 to 11:30, about 2 hours a day, I'm prospecting. And, for the loan officers, I like these theme days, which a guy named Dean Jackson is actually the inventor of the theme days. And, we call our real estate agents on Mondays, and the deals we have in progress, we call them on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we call our past database. Thursday, we call our pre-approved looking. We don't wait till we feel like it, because we feel like it every day from 9:30 to 11:30. And just having the discipline of making that happen. And the trick to it when you're first starting it is don't measure results for the first 90 days. Just measure your action. Yeah. The results will happen 100% of the time. I have never, ever seen a loan officer that did the discipline of blocking out 2 hours of prospecting time and not have epic success. And I've seen them old, young, fat, skinny, beautiful, ugly, whatever.
Agreed.
Speak with a lisp, speak with a stutter, speak with no teeth. I've seen it all. And I have never, ever, not once, seen somebody fail that would give me 2 hours of prospecting every Monday through Thursday. And frankly, the rest of the day could be undisciplined and not have the discipline in place. If you just give me that first 2 hours, it's just an absolute total game changer. The problem though is, Brian, is I think discipline requires somebody else to help us with the task, like accountability. And I think you have to have accountability. For some people, depending upon your relationship with your spouse or your significant other, is make a commitment to them. Like in my case, the lovely Mrs. White. Hey, Maria, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm committing. And I'm promising to you that from 9:30 to 11:30 for that 2 hours, I'm going to do this prospecting. I've had people do an interesting thing, Brian. Like I know a handful that do this. They literally hire a VA, and the VA, they turn their Zoom on, and their VA signs on too. And for that 2 hours, their VA is watching them do their calls. And if they don't do their calls, then there's a negative consequence that happens because of it. And so they've got like the school marm, so to speak, watching over them. Now, this might sound silly, but I guarantee you that when professional football players that are paid tens of millions of dollars a year, they're not on the honor system to go practice on the field Monday through Thursday, getting ready for the game, right? They've got somebody watching them. And so I think you have to have a level of accountability, whether it's a group of loan officers. We've got something like that called Call Stars, or maybe it's just maybe it's 3 or 4 of my buddies that are also loan officers, and we can make this commitment. We're going to sign on to Zoom. We turn our speakers off. We turn our mics off, and we just watch each other, accountability, doing our prospecting calls. And all this stuff might sound silly and like, well, I shouldn't need to do that. What you should or shouldn't have to do doesn't matter. What matters is the results, and having the discipline to set yourself up for success and to do this activity, whether you feel like it or not. You're just going to do it. And what happens is just like going to the gym, so they tell me, or just like going to the gym or walking or riding the bike, that once you do this activity for about a couple, I know the old thing was like, 21 days or something like that. I find it takes a little bit longer than that, actually. So once you do this for about 2 months, like 3 months, brother, it's like crystal easy now. Now it's now it feels wrong. It's like brush your teeth in the morning. It feels wrong not to do it. If you start to leave and you didn't do it, you turn around and go back and do it real quick. And the same thing with our prospecting, that once you have the discipline and the accountability to do that for about 2 to 3 months, it takes a life of its own. And if you're measuring the action and not the results, because the results will happen, but it takes about 30, 60, 90 days for the results to really kick into full gear. But that's the difference between motivation and discipline.
Yeah, we were just a couple of moments ago speaking of the vices and virtues of getting older. As you're saying this, I'm thinking of the 30-year-old Brian. And the 30-year-old Brian would have been very cynical about this approach. Kind of the whole getting up early and kind of setting your day. In fact, I have friends of mine who are very successful in what they do with loans. In fact, when I think of successful loan officers, they all have a high degree, a level of discipline. I think Shannon, who's up in Roseville, California, she's a top producer. She sends me her music playlist every day. She has a radio station that is on at a certain time, and she's always there for that radio station to start her day. I think of Jeremy out in Petaluma. Jeremy's got his mission statement and his workout that he does in the morning. This makes perfect sense to me. I found myself, Carl, and I got a question for you, is trying to change a habit to create a discipline, and that was to listen to my daughter as I was driving her to school, because that's when she likes to talk, turning the radio off.
Yes.
And I found myself after 3 days turning that radio back on and muting out my daughter, and I said, oh boy, if I don't think about this, that discipline is going to be lost. It required a lot of thought, so I give it its reverence. Let's assume a loan officer can put this discipline in place. And by the way, I'm a huge advocate of what you just said. I think that's what 90% of this game's about. What are some of the best practices a loan officer should really be aiming at, kind of time blocking and creating that Monday through Thursday type of Stephen King schedule with? What are some of the highest and best uses of their time?
Well, I think, when we talk about prospecting, those theme days that we just talked about is 100%. Like if you say, hey, Carl, you got to start all over, and you're going to move to an area, nobody knows you, you don't know anybody, you're starting from scratch, and if you're not closing, let's say, 10 loans in 90 days, something bad's going to happen, right? You have to do it. 100% I would do those theme days, right? And I would do that and it's not necessary to do it any more than that 2 hours. The biggest thing that I find is getting rid of the things that would keep you from doing it. Like what are the roadblocks? What are the things that are coming the way? And it's really 4 things. I call them the reactive activators. It's those things that activate us to go back into the reactive mode. Called prospecting is proactive. That's where all the points are scored. So it's like a football game. The offense, most of the time, scores all the points because they're being proactive. Reactive doesn't score as many points, typically. So the four things that I find that get in our way is, number one, the biggie is email. And so for the first 2 hours, you can't check email. Not before, you have to wait until after. Because if I check my email before, I go, oh, let me do this real quick. Let me take care of this. Let me take it. Next thing you know, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, right? Yep. So email, just don't open it up. First time you open your emails at 11:05 when you finished, or 11:35 when you finish your 2 hours. Number two, incoming calls, right? Incoming calls. You go, wait a minute, Carl, the phone rings. I got to answer it. No, somebody has to answer it. You can get an answering service to answer it for about $100 a month. You get a VA to answer it. I can get my processor to answer it, my loan partner, if I've got one of those. You cannot be answering your phone and answering appraisal questions or bank statement questions for that 2 hours. That you got to be prospecting. You have to have the discipline of prospecting. So, and you can't let it go to voicemail because what's the number? 73% of all loans close with the first loan officer they talk to. And so if they get your voicemail and then they call the next person, whoever talks to them first, they get 73% chance to close out. 79% chance of closing that loan, the first person they talk to. So somebody needs to answer that phone. The good news is for about $100, you get an answering service to take that call and set an appointment for you at 11:35 in the morning when you can then make your calls back. Number three is people. I'm sitting in the office and my dear friend Brian shows up, which I love you, Brian. I think you've been a dear friend of mine for decades now.
Yeah.
And I like talking to you. So you come in and say, hey, Carl, how about them Bears? Or you're talking about the F1 cars that you're watching with your daughter. Such a fantastic story, by the way. And I'd like to hear more about it, but not from 9:30 to 11:30, not during my prospecting time. And so I have to let those people in my office know, you cannot knock on my door from this time to this time. I'm in the zone. I'm making sure that both of us have a job next month. And if I don't prospect, all bets are off. The fourth thing that gets in our way, and the last thing, is my sick brain. I'll be 1 hour into the prospecting. It's working. I set three appointments with referral partners. I call my database. I cut a couple deals. They send me some referrals. I'm only an hour into it. And I go, man, this is working great. I'm going to go celebrate by stopping the prospecting and going to check my email. Like that's some big reward somehow or another.
Right.
And so when my brain, when I'm 30 minutes into it, 45 minutes into it, my brain's saying, hey, let's just take a quick break and peek into Facebook just for a second. Or let's go check out that latest TikTok video. We just have to have the discipline to push through that because it's easy not to check my email. It's easy not to answer my phone. It's easy to say, hey, Brian, I love you, but dude, not between 9:30 and 11:30. But my own thoughts is the hardest, and you just have to push through it. So what I do on that is I prospect for 50 minutes, I take a 10-minute break, and then I prospect for 50 minutes, I take a 10-minute break, and then I'm done. And so it's a 50, 10, 50, I say 10, but it's really for the rest of the day. And you eliminate those four things and make a promise to somebody that this is what you're going to do, somebody that matters to you. We did a thing for a while, Brian, where I'd say, hey, Brian, do you really want the results of this? Yes, I really want it. I said, I tell you what, this is free, but if you miss a day, it's $100, and I got your credit card. You miss 2 days, it's $200. And by the way, this agreement, your wife or your husband or your significant other needs to sign it also. So when they see those $100 on the credit card, they'll know exactly what that thing is. And the $100 goes to something completely frivolous. Like it doesn't go to me, and I don't want to go into the starving children's fund because then you feel good about it, and I don't want you to feel good about it. So it literally it buys the upgraded coffee at our events. And so I pay for the coffee. This buys the foo-foo coffee, which is a complete, total, absolute waste of money. Right. And so I find that having some skin in the game is definitely a way to make it. Just depends how bad you want the results. And keep in mind that, dude, when we close another 2, 3, 4 loans a month, I mean, this can be $10,000, $15,000. And even if I ended up paying $100 or $200 because I missed 1 or 2 days, the other, whatever it would be, 17 days that I did show up that month, I made an extra $10,000, $15,000 because I did my prospecting time. And you just have to have the discipline to follow through and do it and actually want the results.
Easier said than done, because what's going to happen with most loan officers is after day 5 or 6, you're going to hate this thing. But do you find it, I kind of think I know the answer to this, do you find it after you've done this for a certain amount of time that it starts to become second nature, where all of a sudden it
just like running, just like walking, just like going to the gym, just like playing the piano, just like insert in any other thing that you didn't know how to do and now you know how to do, it absolutely, it actually becomes, you see football players, we were talking about this before we hit the record button, You see football players going out there and playing football way longer than what they should have been playing, right? They don't need the money. Like Tom Brady doesn't need the money. Why does he do it? He loves winning. He loves the game. And it's the same thing that when you're winning, this is a great career, especially when you're winning. And when you're winning, it's intoxicating because every win is another, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000, 8,000, like whatever that is for your area, your loan amount, your payment plan. Like winning's a really, really, really big deal. And when you make an extra $3 or $4 or $6 or $10,000, and every now and then you go home and you got a little grass stain on your butt, it's okay. It's okay, because you won the game that day. I'm not saying you're never going to get face planted here and there, but you won the game.
Carl, thank you for your time.
I appreciate yours, brother.